welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Yeah, currently covering the trial of Scott Peterson, but I'm just going to briefly touch on what occurred day 5 in that case, because it was mostly the introduction of evidence. So I am going to cover a new trial that is going to be a very, very quick trial. The defense is already putting on their case on day 2. So that tells you how quickly that trial is going. But I wanted to tell you about it because it's different. So, and just from talking to my sister who listens to my show, I think this might be wearing on people. That the amount of death associated with the Scott Peterson trial is just astronomical. Let me just say that. It's horrendous. So, still working on the diamond painting. I'm in the flowers. I'm in the weeds now. Yeah, they're flowers. So I am changing things up a little bit. Let me show you. I'm going to turn the light pad off. So I'm started in the flowers, and these are supposed to be all white flowers here, but I changed it to a white and a really pale pink because I love pink. So yeah, so we're in the flowers now. Finished her dress. This is all done. So I'm working this is what I have left. The flower, the garden. Okay. So let's talk about Scott Peterson very quickly. Scott is on trial. He's the school resource officer at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. He was the school resource officer. He was there on Valentine's Day of 2018 when Nicholas Cruz entered building 1200 of the school, a freshman building, and murdered 17 people and injured 17 others. Prosecution's theory of this case, Nicholas has already been convicted. The prosecution's theory against the school resource officer is that had he intervened at the time he heard the gunshots, he could have assisted or even prevented what occurred on the 3rd floor, which was, and I've had to mentally try to figure this out. So we know that before he even approaches building 1200, there were 11 deaths. There were 11 deaths. So there were 6 more on the 3rd floor. Only 5 of those were children, 1 was adult. So, and there were 2 severely injured. That would make up the 7 counts of child neglect that the school resource officer is charged with. That to me had not solidified in my mind, but now I understand. So I believe the culpable negligence comes in with the adult that might have been involved. I'm not positive on that one. But anyway, so what the evidence showed on day 5 of the trial, they put on the crime scene. Apparently they don't, in Coral Springs or Broward Sheriff's Office, they don't have crime scene officers like specific to that role, civilians that are hired for that role. They have police officers that are detectives that are the crime scene investigators. They go out and they do all the evidence collection, which is a bit different than what we're used to. So they had one detective that had been assigned to just collect the evidence on the 1st floor, another that was in charge of collecting all the evidence on the 2nd floor, and then another that was in charge of the evidence collected on the 3rd floor. So all 3 of these individuals took the stand one at a time, and all the evidence that they collected was admitted into evidence in this trial. Mostly shell casings, photographs, things like that. So I don't know why they allowed the 1st floor evidence to come in, but to me it showed the amount of gunfire. Like I honestly I missed how much was collected on the 2nd floor, but On the first floor, they collected over 70 shell casings, and on the third floor, over 60. So that's a lot of gunfire. There was more collected on the in the stairwell and on the second floor. So lots and lots of shell casings. Like that's a lot of gunfire, a lot of shots fired. So that's what spoke to me after hearing all that. So I do want to talk to you about a new case. Now I'm going to get back to Scott Peterson, but I thought you deserve a little break from that. So this next case, it's also about murder, but it's just a weird one. It's just I can't even pronounce this girl's name. She is 19 years old. Her name is Megan, and let me look up her last name because bless her heart, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm going to try Amerowitz. Imirowicz. Amerowitz. So Megan Amerowitz, back on September 29th of 2021, had just turned 18 and was planning to have a birthday party on October 1st. Now, my sense is that this birthday party was going to occur at a hotel. That's the impression that I got, that it wasn't going to occur in their home. So she wakes up that morning and her father is drunk. She was relying on her father that day to take her to get her hair done at the hotel. So she was very angry when he's drunk. Now, where's mom? Mom, Judy, had divorced Conrad, was his name, Conrad Amerowitz, had divorced Conrad many, many years ago, and in fact has two of his other children. So the family split apart. So Megan and her brother Austin were living with Conrad, and there's two other children that were living with the mom. Now, Austin had moved out the year before after he graduated, so he was living with some roommates in another location. So at this home is just Megan and her father. Now the home's a mess. Everyone testifies that that's the way it was. It was the usual thing for this house to be a mess. So she's angry with her father, so she starts throwing things at him: garbage, water, and a cleaning agent. What we later find out to be drain cleaner that had 100% lye in it, Lye, lye. So following this, she leaves. She calls a friend, they come get her, take her to the hotel to get her hair done. So, but her father, he has a drink, he falls asleep on the couch. So, as it turns out, he sustained chemical burns at over 41% of his body. EMS was called. He was taken to the hospital. He spent 153 days in a burn unit where he suffered a tracheotomy. He had both legs amputated. He was on life support for a while. And in the end, he opted to go with hospice. He went home and died 3 days after he arrived home. All right, that was the openings and of both prosecution and defense. Very, very, very quick openings, like 5 minutes. And this prosecutor talks so fast. Oh my God. I would have to tell him, slow down. He is a really fast talker. Now, where's my pen? I'm going to do some diamond painting while I'm talking to you. So, while we have a break in the testimony here, I will tell you tonight I'm going to be live at 6:30 p.m. I'm going to be doing adult coloring, and I'll have my friend from Shalene's Creativity Room. Shalene will be there. She is an adult colorist. It's what she does, adult coloring and cross stitch on her channel, and she is amazing with the coloring. Oh my God, the shading, like I'm just like trying to stay in the lines. Anyway, tune in. It'll be cute. I have a new gnome coloring book. Yeah. So you want to see that. All right, back to this case. So those are the openings. So the first witness is a friend of Megan's, former friend of Megan's. Her name is Kayla. They've been longtime friends. Kayla doesn't even need to knock on the door. Like they're so, what do I want to say? So acquainted. They like she's a neighbor. She's known them forever. She just walks in to the home. That's how close they are. So gets a call. Kayla gets a call from Megan and says around 10 o'clock. And actually, it wasn't a call. It was a Snapchat picture where Megan is crying in the picture, and she says that she was crying because her dad was drunk and she threw stuff at him. So then about 3:40 that afternoon, Kayla gets a phone call from Megan saying, I'm at the hotel, but the credit card's not working. Can you go talk to my dad and get the credit card? Because Kayla's plan was to meet Megan at the hotel. So she just lived a few houses down from where Conrad was at the house. So she said, okay, I'll stop by. So she enters the house. She doesn't need to knock on the door. She goes into the house. She sees Conrad sitting up on the couch, and she said the door was unlocked, so she goes right in. She said he was awake. He had his legs crossed and that he was naked with a blanket covering him and that he looked black. And she didn't know how to process this information. She said his legs looked green, and she said, "What's wrong?" And he says, "My hand hurts." So right then, Megan calls saying, "Did you get the credit card number?" And so I guess he gives Megan the credit card number. She's like, "Well, that's not working," and she hangs up. So at this point, Kayla says, because she's very confused. She doesn't even know what to do here. So she steps outside and she calls her mother. She then calls Megan, or she gets a call from Megan, and she says, something's wrong with your dad. Megan's like, I don't care. I need the credit card number, and hangs up on her. She said, oh, he's just drunk. Oh, he's just drunk. But I need this credit card number. Like she was persistent about this credit card. So then Megan calls her brother Austin, and she tells Austin, what she's seen, and Austin says, you need to call 911. So she calls 911, and EMS comes, and he says that Conrad appeared to be intoxicated, um, and had said, when asked what happened, he said he had set off a flea bomb, which is an aerosol spray. So this guy thought, well, if he set off a flea bomb and then fell asleep, he would have some lung damage, or something affecting his lungs. And he listened to his lungs, and his lungs sounded fine. So he didn't really put much stock in that being the cause of what he was seeing. So then Austin takes the stand, and there is clearly some animosity between siblings going on here, because both of them had this very defensive body language going on. She looked like she was crying, and he was sitting there like this. So I'll put a picture of her. This is what she looked like while their brother's testifying, and you could tell like her leg is going, and she's moving her legs, and she's trying not to start bawling, because she looked like she just felt very betrayed by him, and who could blame her? And he was very defensive when the defense attorney was asking him questions. He's like, he's got his arms crossed, and so apparently there's a little rift going on between Austin and Megan at this point. So Austin says, he wasn't living there at the time that he got a call from Kayla, and that she sounded very confused, like by what she had seen. He told her to call 911. She described to him that her his father looked black and covered in something. So he gets in his car with some of his best friend Lucas and some of his roommates, and he meets the ambulance over at his house. In fact, he said the ambulance was already there. His dad was already on the stretcher. He described that his dad was all black. He said he was fine, that he didn't know what had happened, but he sounded normal. So at the hospital, he tells the hospital personnel that he had set off a bug bomb, had a drink, and then fell asleep on the couch. So apparently, on the day that this occurred, Austin had written out a statement, because a lot of his testimony wasn't jiving with apparently what was in this statement. So the prosecutor had Austin read the statement. So in this statement, he says that Megan had said she had told his mother that she had thrown bread. And the father had said that she had thrown some trash, some clothes, some cans, some hairspray, and cleaning supplies on him. So they take him to the hospital, and he describes his father as sober and conscious. Then he said after they took his father away in the ambulance and before he set out to go to the hospital, he went in the house and he looked at the couch and he saw that there was white stuff all over the couch, a ton of white stuff all over the couch. He saw blood and he smelled chemical. So he said Megan called him and he told her that he was at the hospital. And she said she didn't care. She just wanted the credit card information. And then he said, I'm at the hospital with Dad. And she's like, I don't care. And she hangs up on him. So that's like 6 o'clock in the evening. So she's still, I don't know what they were doing at the hotel, but she's still trying to get this information. Now, I do know later on that the cops greeted her at the hotel to ask her some questions. So Austin said that because he was the closest family member, the wife was divorced, although she did come to the hospital to see him, that he authorized treatment. But he says, I never authorized any treatment that my dad didn't consent to. He says, I would talk about it with my dad first, and then I would sign the authorization. But he authorized both legs that be amputated because they got so infected and they just weren't healing. And it was obvious to the medical providers that these legs needed to come off. That he authorized a trach. He authorized treatment for all the infection that he suffered. He authorized dialysis when his kidneys failed. And then his father decided he wanted to come home. This is March of the following year. This happened on October 1st. March of the following year, he says, I want to come home. So Austin gets his friends together. They go to the house, they clean it up, and bring his father home. And his father passes away 3 days later. And on cross-examination, he said he was asked about his father's drinking. And this is when he gets all defensive. He's like, everyone drinks. Everyone drinks. He says, my father, let me, I'm not going to lie here. I'm going to put it this way. My father would drink. Yes, he would drink, but he was still functional. He still knew what was going on. This speaks to him being an alcoholic, I must say. So the body language was very interesting during this questioning. So the next witness was his friend Lucas, who Lucas said, Austin's like a brother to me. I've known him for 15 years. Conrad is like a dad to me. I've known him for that many years as well. He said that he was present with Austin when Kayla called them, and Austin actually put it on speaker so that Austin could hear it as well, and he heard Kayla say that his dad looked dead and that he looked like a rotting corpse was the actual statement. So he, after the ambulance left, he also went in and viewed what the couch looked like. He said the couch looked wet because it looked like it was a leather couch or a pleather or whatever, but it had, you know how leather gets dark when it's wet? Some of this couch was dark. He noticed a large amount of liquid on the floor. Couldn't say that it never would say what it was. He said, I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was water. I have no idea. He said that this house was always messy, but today it was like more than usual messy because there was garbage everywhere. Um, with respect to Conrad, he said he was not very verbal and it was very hard to understand him because he also saw him in the hospital. Spent at least 30 minutes alone with Conrad, and he said he just wasn't very verbal. So what Austin is describing is having conversations with dad and dad telling him Megan through all this stuff isn't consistent with what Lucas is saying, that the dad wasn't very verbal. So then we get the medical examiner who said he examined the body in March. He did an autopsy. At this point, Conrad passed away at 64 years of age. He said he had severe chronic ulcers all over his body, likely from the chemical burns, and then just would not heal. They were chronic and they weren't healing, probably because of the chemical. His kidneys had been damaged from long-standing hypertension, and he was questioned a lot about this, and it was clear that he also had congestive heart failure, which he said could be from the hypertension, the long-standing hypertension. So this man, Conrad, had high blood pressure that apparently was not being treated at the time this injury occurred, and he had, the medical examiner said apart from the injuries, he doesn't know how long he could have lived with this high blood pressure, but certainly all of the medication that he received from, for the infections and the treatment for the burns and the trauma itself, putting extra stress on the body, all of it contributed to him passing away as a result of these chemical burns. So his cause of death was chemical burns with complications. Um, then on cross examination, he was asked about the status of his liver. Because, in an alcoholic, you would think you're going to see some liver damage. And he said, you know, the liver is a very remarkable organ. It will heal itself. He says, in binge drinkers, what you see is uh, they may have some damage from binge drinking for a day, 2, 3 days, whatever, and then they'll go 4 or 5 days without drinking, and then liver heals itself. And then it's damaged again, and then it heals itself. So in the 5 months between injury and death, if there had been liver damage from drinking, it may have healed itself. Okay, interesting. So then we got the next person on the stand is a guy by the name of Shelton. And he said, I am a former friend of Austin. And I actually saw Megan's demeanor change when this guy took the stand. She seemed happy to see him, but not when the testimony was done. I don't know what she looked like at the end of the testimony. They didn't show her, but he didn't testify long. He had some text messages that were going back and forth between him and Megan about money. He had offered to help her with a project, some kind of musical project for school, and he was going to pay her money. I don't know. So anyway, she texts him that she really needs the money, and could they move forward with whatever this was? And then she says, it's been really rough, and he didn't know what she was talking about. He had not heard about what happened to her father. So she sends a series of videos through the messaging app to him. And if I can get them and put them here, it's a little chilling, but it's obvious to me after listening to them that she did not realize what she had done. It wasn't clear to me that, because she talks about this can of chemicals that's found at the end of, she said was at the end of the couch. I didn't hear her say she threw the chemical on him, but that to me was confusing because they did have to edit some of this footage to be shown to the jury. There was a part that they couldn't show to the jury for some reason. I don't know what it was. By agreement of the parties, it was edited, and this is what was shown to the jury. But my sense from viewing this is that it certainly wasn't intentional. I mean, I think she intended to throw this stuff, but I don't know. So, one thing that came out during the openings is that in the alternative, if they don't believe, if the jury does not believe that this was intentional murder, aggravated murder, in the alternative, they could find her guilty of domestic battery. I'm leaning more towards the domestic battery because I don't think murder was her attempt, was her intention here. No, I don't think so. So that this may wrap up today. I know that, like I said, the defense is already putting on their case. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it shakes out. We may get a verdict on this as soon as tomorrow. So, all right, guys, that's the show for today. Like I said, I'll be live tonight at 6:30 Central Time. Adult coloring. So come, you're invited to come chat with me. And I will see you then, or if not, I'll see you tomorrow on Crafting and Crime Daily with more of the Scott Peterson trial and more of the oh God, how do you say it? Amerowitz trial. Yeah, I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.